Today I'm going to do a little painting of this angel statue on this headstone. I really love cemeteries for painting because you get such a good mix of natural and man-made elements. And statues are great for practicing figures because they don't move, and yet you still get the three-dimensional lighting on the figure. And so I'm actually just walking around trying to see where the interesting shadows are, because it doesn't necessarily need to be a painting of the face of the statue. I actually really just want to find a good light and shadow pattern, which I think this is kind of interesting right here actually. I'm a little concerned because the sun has been bothering me. It's right there, so it's kind of behind me. But I think that I'm gonna try this today. My stuff is a mess from yesterday. I packed most of it back up into my backpack, but I don't think I put my pochade box in here. I think it's on the floor of my car. So I should be more organized, but I am actually just painting on my lunch break from work right now. And so it's kind of just a quick thing. Grab some water, painting water, oops, drinking water, and you know what? I'm gonna be crazy and just leave my keys in here. Oh, there's my pochade box. Oh, not organized at all. Kind of nice. I'm not going to stand today. I do have my tripod that I'll use, but I'm actually just going to sit. It's easier for me to focus when I sit on the ground. I know it's weird. When I'm standing, it just, I don't know. I've always done art sitting down. All right, let's get set up. I haven't actually used this setup in a seated position other than just holding my pochade box in my lap. And there's nothing wrong with that, but for filming, it doesn't look great. So, trying to keep filming in mind. I want to do more videos, and this is actually a little bit tall, so I'm going to have to raise up my camera just a bit. That's pretty good. Nice and easy. I'm sure that my watercolor palette is stuck to the roof of, yep, it always sticks because I have so much paint along the edges of this that it just it sticks there, and I need to just wipe that clean sometime, but I don't know, we'll see about it. I mean, I'll clean it and then it's just gonna happen again, right? Okay, how's my angle? Do I need a little more height? I believe so, and I can do that. So it's kind of nice. I didn't have to get the legs out on the tripod. I'm just going to be sitting on my bum doing this painting, and it's actually even just a little tall for that, but it's going to be okay. Honestly, I think it's going to be better than standing. Pretty much anything is better than standing, in my opinion. I like to sit. Does that make me lazy? I don't care. So not too many things that I will be using. So I have my palette here. I'll just kind of quickly point out my colors. I have Payne's Gray, and then this is like a lavender. It's a little bit semi-opaque. I use it a lot. I actually, like, it is probably the color I use the most, which is crazy. Then I have Phthalo Green, Cerulean Blue, Ultramarine Blue. I do have some white gouache over here. I always activate it with water just in case, but I actually do try not to use it. I try to, when I'm doing watercolor, I try to just be mindful of using the white of the paper. Then I have Azo Yellow. This is Quinacridone Gold. Everything's still wet from yesterday. I believe that this is something like a permanent rose. It's more on the magenta side of red, but it would not be in alizarin crimson. I don't use alizarin crimson because it is not light fast. And then this is burnt sienna. But yeah, this is something like a permanent rose. It's probably permanent rose because I really like that. I'll be using this Hake brush. I really like it for the beginning phases of painting. And then I have two mop brushes. Probably don't need to use them both, but I'm gonna have them out just in case. And then yesterday I ended up using a flat brush. I almost never use flat brushes when I do watercolor painting, but I really found it helpful when I was out here yesterday, and I waited until the last part of the painting to put in the headstones. And at first I was using one of my mop brushes, and I just wasn't really getting the geometric shape that I wanted. So we're gonna have that out and handy just in case, because yesterday it was not handy. I had to go digging for it. And then I have like a small round brush that I'll do details at the end with. I'm kind of, I probably use my red pencil, and it's an erasable, but I never erase. I'm I'm not super precise about sketching, but I just really like to use a red pencil to sketch. Sometimes I do use a regular pencil, but I don't know, if I have that with me and it's not broken and it's usable, I will almost always just go for the red pencil to do my sketching. Just my preference. Okay, and then this is Arches paper. It's part of a block, but for reasons that I don't remember, I needed to make my block like, oh, it's because it was too thick to like actually clip on here with the clips that I have, and so I actually had to divide my block into 2 sections just so that I could use my clips, because my clips are just not big enough for like a brand new block of paper. And this works great. I just used 2 clips. I probably don't even need 2. I could probably just use 1 just to kind of pin the paper in place. But I don't know. I used 2 on opposite corners. And if I'm using just 1 sheet of paper that isn't still glued on all sides, then I would probably use a clip on each corner. And that's it. That's all I'm going to use today. I'm not even going to sit on my blanket. I'm just going to sit on the grass. And here's the thing. Now I have to just like think about this composition, and I don't want to feel rushed, so I'm just going to turn the camera off while I think. Alright, I haven't really thought all that much, honestly. It was only a few seconds and I just changed the angle of my camera instead of actually like doing any thinking. So we're just gonna wing it, because that's kind of what plein air painting is all about. I am one who I don't feel like composition is my strong suit. Let's just say that. I've got a few elements in here. Actually, let's just take a look. So if you look at what I'm working with here, it's early November, so we do have some fall colors, but I don't feel like they're really prominent in this view. I had a lot more when I came out here yesterday, I deliberately looked for a lot of red and orange trees to get into my composition. And today it's really more about this statue figure. So I have this tree, not a whole lot going on there that's very interesting, other than it kind of mirrors the overall shape of the shadow. And I think that's what I'm going to play with. Again, it's not even really, I don't know that that's like some amazing compositional decision, but it's just what is interesting to me. And oops, it's a little low. So that's what I'm just going with that. That's what I almost always do. And I'm definitely one of those people who, like, I'll know some of the rules about composition and the ones that you're supposedly not supposed to break, and I will just break it anyway. Like, I love tangents. I love tangents, and you won't find me, like, if I see a tangent, or even if I see something that's close to a tangent, I'm gonna make it a tangent. If it's not already a tangent, I'm gonna make it a tangent, and I love it. I don't know why. And we're going to really focus on the figure. There's actually just going to be a lot of sky unless I move the tree line up a bit. This is going to be a weird composition, I think. It's okay. And then, yeah, I'm not sure how interesting it is to watch me draw, but I do love to draw. You know, I need to actually focus on the figure more instead of down here, because if I keep everything in proportion, I know that the figure is not going to stay on the page. So let's actually start up here. Again, it's plein air painting. I'm totally embracing just doing everything on the fly, because you guys have to keep me honest, because I only get an hour for my lunch break. So if this video is more than an hour, I am in trouble at work, and I'm really bad at keeping track of time when I paint. I'm just gonna keep the shape of the wing really general. We're not going to get like every detail in there, at least not right now. My tripod is very wobbly. So yeah, this definitely, and here's the thing, you know, what I really like about watercolor is I really embrace the kind of chaotic nature of it. And so I allow my sketch to be pretty rough. And like I said, I don't erase, and that's not because I'm an amazing draftsman. It's because I just embrace kind of the chaos of being in the moment with watercolor as a medium. And I feel like I'm actually a little bit more careful with oils, although you don't need to be. You can just be chaotic with any art medium, really. But I just tend to embrace the chaos of watercolor a little bit easier, I guess. So yeah, I'm not even going to erase these incorrect lines. I'm just going to leave them there, and they just become a little bit of energy, in my opinion. So I'm going to go back up here and kind of block out the shadows. They're just interesting. And then So that is going to be the new base under the statue, where the headstone actually begins. And I'll just make these lines a little bit bolder. Just kidding about those other ones. So I don't hate that. I think that's a good start. So now I can go in here, and I'm still, like, I'm not gonna go in and like render every detail. There must be some actual watercolor on this pencil. I'm getting some weird black lines. Interesting. I used to think that, you know, my line work was super important with watercolor because it does show through, but honestly, the more you look at people's watercolors, like, you can probably find the line work if you're looking for it, but otherwise it's not really that noticeable typically. And then when you do notice it, it's just kind of fascinating, like all the imperfections. I mean, that's what I love about watercolor, is it's a medium that's not meant to be, in my opinion. There are some watercolor artists out there who are really precise and have a lot of control over the medium. And to each their own, but I just really like the spontaneous, sort of chaotic nature of it. And so to me, all the imperfections are just super interesting. Okay, I'm pretty happy with my angel here. And now I can kind of move on to this tree. And then we're going to figure out, probably, like, the tree line is way beneath the angel. I could, like, bring it up here. I don't know if I want to, because I mean, it's fall, and so I feel like I'm losing, like, if I don't have any of those fall colors, I'm missing that, like, this rare moment of time that is autumn. But again, like, what is the focus of this painting? It's actually not about color at all. It's kind of just about light and shadow, and like this interesting mirroring that I'm getting between the general shape of the statue and this tree. And again, like, just like I said as I was walking up here, one of the things I love about cemeteries is that it's this, like, all these natural and man-made elements all together in a really unique way. I mean, you get this in a city where you have a city park and then you have all the buildings, but those buildings are massive, and sometimes I think it's difficult to think of them as something other than, like, massive and super important, and they almost overshadow all the natural elements in a way. I think a city, like a well-planned city, that doesn't happen. I think that a well-planned city really sees all those natural elements as maybe equally important as the architecture. Okay, so now I have to make some decisions. I mean, really the background is just sky. There's kind of a distant tree back here that, you know, it's just kind of there. And then otherwise we have kind of these nice wispy light clouds that kind of come in at this diagonal angle. I think the bottom of the composition is very white. There's a lot of clouds down there. And you know what? Let's just leave it the sky for now, because I can always add trees later. So yeah, let's just go for it. I always like to start out with this big brush because it just enables me to keep everything extremely wispy and light and, again, chaotic. I did not clean off this palette. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And I did not, because I didn't really do anything yesterday. I went out on my lunch break and I did a really quick painting, and then I had to go back to work. And I just left everything in my car all night, and here I am again. I actually, usually I use my water brush to just go ahead and reactivate all my wells. I didn't do that, so I'm gonna just do that really quick with this. This brush is like a super mop brush, so. And they should reactivate pretty quickly because I used them yesterday and like things are still wet. During this initial phase of painting, I really don't even think too much about color, although I will say that if there is yellow, like bright yellow in my composition, this is where I'm going to have to really think about that and get it in. Because it's, yellow is just not something you can add in later. Yellow is a color that locally is a very light value. So its local value is very, very light. Yes, you can paint a yellow object in shadow, but the shadow isn't yellow anymore. It's something else. Yellow is always a light value. It has to be. And so I want all of the light areas on the angel to be kind of a yellowish orange, and the shadows will be more of a violet. So we'll have complementary color scheme going on there. I did not grab a paper towel. I mean, this is going to dry pretty white, but I think I'm just going to kind of lightly blot out some of this at the bottom. I'm getting bit by bugs a little bit. I've done a few videos lately, and I just paint and I don't narrate. Today I'm trying to narrate just to kind of feel it out. I think it does make it a little bit harder to focus on the painting when you're trying to narrate at the same time. Like trying to carry a conversation while you're painting is a challenge for most people, including me. But I have filmed all of these other videos recently, and actually I've been filming videos for over a year, and none of them have made it anywhere. Why? Because I don't want to sit and narrate. I don't want to sit and just try to remember everything that I did. I am trying to commit to the videos that I've made earlier this week. I'm trying to just commit to, I'm going to do those. I'm going to narrate those and put them up. But it's gonna be a challenge for me to do that. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not looking forward to it. And my goal is to get videos up. And so if I have to learn to just narrate as I paint so that videos can get up, that's what I'm gonna have to kind of commit myself to doing. And so I'm trying that today. This is me trying, and that's what it's all about, right? So yeah, this first wash, I don't put too much thought into it. I use this big brush to intentionally relinquish any kind of even idea that I have control over this stuff. I think that watercolor is so great for just letting go and just splashing it around and letting things happen and not worrying too much about it. This first wash is, generally speaking, it's very light and washy, obviously. And so anything that happens here and you don't like it, you probably won't even notice it in the final painting. And that is a beautiful thing. Again, I just want to keep the bottom of the painting very, very light and airy, because those are my clouds. And then I will say too that I am someone who, between layers, I really do like to let it dry and set, so that as I proceed, like, I like to work in pretty much 3 or 4 distinct layers. I try to keep it as much as possible to 3, and once I get into that 4th layer, I tend to be overworking. But that's my goal, is to kind of keep it to just 3 or 4 layers of paint, and I like to let them dry in between. So I'm gonna turn off the camera now. We'll be back when this is much drier. Okay, well, let's see. It's still a little bit damp, but I just looked at the time, and guess what? I'm running way over time on my lunch break already. I mean, I'm getting close to the end, so we're just gonna have to do what we can do. Again, that's just part of plein air painting. Sometimes you, for whatever reason, you're gonna have a limited amount of time, and that's just life. So I'm gonna go ahead, we're gonna get some really nice bold yellows in on this tree now, and try not to, I think that part of the reason why sometimes I do more layers than I really want to is because I keep my washes too light for too long. So I really am trying to be bold here. And one thing that I'm trying to work on personally, especially when I do like foliage and trees, is to keep my strokes like really energetic. And I find that that's good when you can like kind of like work with an upward motion. I find that I just get more energy if I do that. And like a little bit of dry brush here and there. And then I have this more distant tree back there, so it's going to also be yellow, but just not as vibrant. So I'm just kind of using some of the other paint that's already on the palette. I want to try to maintain some of the, you know, sky holes a little bit, but we don't need to go too crazy with stuff like that. And then, you know, we can have just a little bit of the distant trees just right down here. We'll just make that decision right now. There we go. So now we have them. And then there's a little bit of green in the tree leaves, but what I'm gonna do, again, because like yellows, and then from yellow we get orange, and I'd say orange is the next color that like you have to just get it in there pretty early, or you lose your opportunity to have it, because it's too easy for it to get crowded out by other darker colors. So we're going to go ahead and get some oranges going in here as well, and the oranges kind of lean into more the shadowy side of the foliage. Got flies all over. They're kind of biting me. I don't know. One thing that I've always struggled with in plein air painting is like the discomfort that's inherent in doing it. And I have just accepted that I'm gonna get like bit by bugs all the time. I'm gonna do the the sunny side of the tree, and actually I can just do like the whole tree trunk with this orange because the shadows can just go over it. We're gonna get some of these started. And this is pretty thick paint. I don't want it to be too runny. We can, I mean, the tree trunk, even the parts of the tree trunk in light are still dark compared to the sky, so we can go pretty dark with this stuff. Just let it run into the other colors and it's fine. I can kind of lay this a little bit flatter. I think you can still see it, and that will help a little bit with the running. But again, it's watercolor. It's supposed to run a little bit. We can get some oranges down in here just for fun. You know, doing the narration might slow me down because it's just a fact I can't focus as well when I'm talking. So, we'll see. I would like to be able to do like little 45-minute videos where I just sit and paint and narrate and then it's ready to post. That's the dream. We'll see if, you know, with practice I know that I can do it. So, it might just be a matter of, you know, I'm going to post some videos of paintings that don't quite get finished because I have to kind of use my lunch break right now during the week to do plein air painting because now sunset is at 5:30 p.m. and that just, I get done working at 5 and that just does not leave any time for painting outside. I mean, I like painting nocturnes, but I also don't really love being out at night by myself painting. I'm gonna let, I really want to get into the shadows on this because that's why I'm here, but I need to let some of this kind of just settle first, so I need to be patient. And so I'm just looking at other things that I can work on right now. So I think I can start doing some of the greens. I don't want the greens to be too bright, so I used a little Payne's gray in here. Some cerulean blue. And this was the same mix that I used for the orange, so there's just naturally, there's some red in there to kind of tone that down. Let's just kind of add in a little bit of green. Throwing paint around like literally. Getting kind of a weird pattern here. I'm not loving it. Like it's not exactly a spatter, it's like lines, but whatever. You just gotta try things sometimes. Going in here with some pure yellow too. As much as I can. I think it's always good to kind of exaggerate the foliage. The foliage on this tree, I would say, is like pretty sparse in reality, so I am kind of like filling it out more than it really is, but that I think just kind of helps with the color issue. Okay, so at this point I feel like I gotta just leave this alone now, and I think I can probably get away with doing some shadows on the angel. And I will switch to a little bit smaller brush. I'm going to use the smaller mop brush. And we're going to kind of do a muted violet. I started out saying that I like use that lavender and everything, and so far you've seen me use it in precisely nothing. that's just how it goes. Sometimes yesterday, I swear it was in every single mix that I made. And today I haven't used it so far. And part of the reason is because it's kind of opaque. It kind of feels like gouache. But it's really good for like just neutralizing pretty much any color. I use it to neutralize greens a lot. I'm keeping the shadows. I don't want to go in like super dark right off the bat. In fact, let's kind of push that back. And we're just gonna keep it, I'm gonna intentionally keep the shadows very, very blocky right now. Because otherwise I'm going to start meandering into like all the details and nuances of the shadow, and I'm going to lose that spontaneous feeling that I love in watercolor. If you stay in like one area of the painting too long, I think that is probably the number one reason that you might like lose that spontaneity in your watercolor paintings. So I think you kind of have to, like, you just literally have to make yourself paint with broad strokes, use a bigger brush, and be very blocky in your applications. You just have to make yourself do it. It's really, we all love to just get lost in detail, right? But I'd say that's like, especially with watercolor, I feel like that is what is going to kill the spontaneity of your painting more than anything else, is being too precious about details way too early on in the process. Another thing I love about watercolor is the way that you can glaze, and it's so easy because it dries so fast. I'm not very patient, and so when I'm oil painting, I want to glaze my oil paints, but I like don't have the patience to do it. So I find it much easier to wait for a watercolor painting to dry enough to apply a glaze, and then you just get the most interesting, nuanced colors that you couldn't get by mixing those same colors. If you mixed them on your palette and applied them, you're just not going to get this look. And I absolutely love it. It's my favorite. It might be everything's my favorite. All right. I love watercolor. I didn't do watercolor for a really, really long time. I was really focused on just alla prima oil painting. And it's just been, it was probably like a couple of plein air trips that I did recently where taking oils was just not going to be convenient. And so I kind of just had to get my watercolors out, kind of reluctantly, I must admit. But then it's like you get going with it and you're like, oh yeah, I really love this. I might love it more than oil painting. Maybe. Depends on the day. So we've got this goofy thing going on here that I just noticed. You guys were probably watching it on the video and like screaming at your screen for me to like catch this and stop it from happening, but it happened. It's there. What can we do about it? I don't know. This? Maybe? Otherwise, just leave it because you're probably the only one who's going to notice it. Okay, now we can go back to the tree. I'm going to keep using this brush, and I actually want to get more like orange on the trunk. I feel like it's not strong enough. While still kind of leaving some of that lighter color showing through. And there's some interesting green areas. When it comes to doing trees, one of my favorite things is to really, like, if I notice even like the hint of some color, I will really try to push it and exaggerate it. And so, you know, if I showed you a photograph of this tree, would you say like, oh, the bark is really green and orange? No, you would not. But if I see even like a hint in there, I'm going to really push it. And it looks great usually. I mean, I want to say it always looks great, but that just feels like bragging. But it's not about me. It's just about, you know, because it's there. And I think that we all, on some level, we perceive it. And so when you see a painting that has really pushed the colors, I think that that most people enjoy that, because we do kind of see that, whether we're really aware of it or not. Maybe the painting makes people aware of what they're seeing sometimes. I think that that's probably true. Otherwise, I'm just making it up. This is kind of like that distant tree back there, and this is probably all I'm going to do as far as like the structure of the branches of this tree. I'm going to leave it very light and washy, but you're just going to get a sense of like a little bit of structure back there. But if I went and like fully rendered out like everything in this distant tree and made the branches, you know, dark, it would be distracting. So we're just going to, in fact, I'm going to kind of like wipe off my brush, and we're just going to add like a little bit of like dry brush back here, just to like obscure some of this line work actually a little bit more, because I think it might just be distracting. Okay, that's good. And I feel like the sky could be bluer. I don't really want to, I need some lights in here obviously, but I feel like we can just like add a little bit of blue to the sky to give it a little bit more vibrancy, because I'm not really getting a sense of the clouds down at the bottom because there isn't enough blue in the sky. So I'm just going to go around some of these yellow marks. I think it also adds a nice contrast for the statue to have a little bit more blue back here. And then as we work down, it can be lighter and lighter. Don't need too much of that. Just a little. Okay. Let's go back. We have to, with watercolor, you know, we got to kind of go back and forth. And a good thing about this scene is there are elements that are separate from each other, so I can kind of go between the tree and the statue. Yesterday, everything was a way more unified, and so I really had to actually sit and wait for layers to dry before I could proceed. And I feel like the benefit of this one today is that I can really kind of divide it up into elements. So now I'm kind of looking for all the darker shadows. And ideally this would be like this would be the last stage of doing the shadows. We'll see. It might just have to be for the sake of time, to be frank. And then of course the other challenge of plein air painting is that the shadows, like when I first started, when I drew the shadows, they were just a little bit different than they are now. So I would say I mostly am going to err on the side of just sticking with where the shadows were when I started as much as possible. But, you know, I think there's circumstances where it might be appropriate to adjust your shadows as you go, but I think that can be a little bit frustrating, and then you never really get to feel like you're done painting either, unless you kind of have a way, like a cue to yourself of when to stop. Some of these deeper shadows I'm adding more blue to the mix, and then where they're lighter, I'm allowing a little bit more red to show through, but basically my shadows are violet. And right now I'm really still looking at the sky and thinking that I need more blue in the sky in order to get the level of contrast between the sky and then the lights of the shadow, or the lights of the statue. I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna do that today, because I need to get going. It would be nice. And now we're going to kind of work on the shadow part of the tree, which is pretty simple. Start blocking that in. It's a violet, but I've added some yellow into it just to make it a little bit more earthy, and I don't want it to be the exact same violet as the shadow that we have on the statue. And then to kind of get this sense of dappled light, there's going to be more shadow up in these. Actually, I'll just switch brushes to my thinner brush so I can get some of those lines up there a little bit thinner. But I like to kind of break up the shadows a little bit, and then also just kind of keeping in the same spirit as like the energy of the foliage. You know, kind of like not being too precise with your brush. Even when you're doing branches, I know like your instinct is to like render out every branch and like draw it as a line, but you get a lot more energy and visual interest by being really, really loose with your branches and just kind of letting go of any sense that this is like an exact portrait of the tree. We have the general shape, and that's really all we need. But yeah, your shadows should be pretty broken up. Otherwise, it looks a little too static. There's a lot of dappled light going on, and what that means is that the light is being blocked by objects, so it's not laying evenly. When you see dappled light on the ground, it's a little easier to explain because you have the light shining through an object like a tree, and so the light on the ground is spotty because of the way that it's impacted by the structure of the tree and the leaves and things like that. But you also get that effect on the tree itself because the light is shining through branches and leaves that are obstructing, you know, themselves, essentially. It's all one organism, but it's got so many protrusions in every direction that you're just like going to get scattered light everywhere. So, what do you think? I really do want to go back into the sky. I just do. I don't know that it's the right thing to do, but it's what I want to do. Because I really want to get more contrast. That's so dark. It breaks the rules of the sky, but this is just what it looks like today. The sky is just this really kind of deep blue, so I'm gonna go for it. And we just can't get the contrast that I want without it. Just add some blue over here. And then we're going to just let this come down a bit. Like all the way down here. And then I'll use my paper towel again to kind of blot it. But I think that helps. What do you think? I think that helps. I think it helps a lot. And I'm glad I did it. Let's just, like, one more last thing, because this is the point where I'm gonna start overworking it, but I just really want to kind of deepen some of the shadows. So let's just do some Payne's Gray. I just want to add a little bit of depth to some of these shadows. And yeah, this is definitely not like it's not a portrait of the tree. It's also not a portrait of the statue, but it's fun. It's fun to kind of explore all of these relationships and to just I don't know, I feel like this for me is like, I'm trying to stretch my imagination a little bit and not be so focused on just like painting exactly what I see, but kind of like I don't even know, like, I want to say it's my feeling about it, but it's not like I have an emotion about it. And that's like a blockage for me. It's like, I don't know that I haven't developed like a real, like, genuine feeling for painting, which is the weirdest thing to say because I absolutely love painting, but I just feel like I don't put enough of myself into my paintings, and I'm trying to even understand what that means for me. So, you know, this is just me kind of like trying to push it a little bit further than just like rendering. And, you know, I guess what I'm doing is, it's not a feeling, it's an idea. And so I had this idea about the shape of the statue mirroring the shape of the tree. Kind of this funky, weird composition that probably is like not going to like make it into any lesson about composition, but it was an idea. And like I said, I like to kind of break the rules of composition whenever I can. I think it's fun. Oh yeah, I was gonna put some green branches into the tree. So let's do that. And mostly I'm seeing them over on the shadow side of the tree. And then we can actually bring some of this green into the shadow. To add a little bit more color depth. Okay, I have to call it good because I am so sure that I'm late getting back to work. So let's just take a quick look at the final thing. There it is. There's the scene. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I rate it highly. Like an 8 out of 10. It was a good experience, and I hope that you guys enjoyed it too. See you next time.